Bonjour, buenos dias, good morning, ni hao, sin chao, what's up? It's me, Mr. Jordan. Today we're going to be looking at The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, chapter 33. We will start with a brief recap and summary of the chapter, the literal events. Then we'll dig into a close line-by-line reading where we analyze some specific extracts and quotes. And finally, we'll finish off with the vocabulary from the chapter along with some context and definitions for each of the words. A brief recap of chapter 33. The narrator Offred and another handmaid, Offglen, are walking together to the Pravaganza, which is a sort of extravaganza or spectacle of praying that we're told is put on for television cameras. And everyone's there, the guardians, the angels, the commanders, the whole big shebang. It's the big spectacle and show of pomp and regimentation and uniformity and basically the new being and new order of Gilead. We also find out that because it's such a big, loud show and there's so many people there, it's actually an opportunity for subversion. So Offgled and Offred use it as an opportunity to go to the back of the crowd and to actually chit-chat a little bit and speak under the noise of the crowd where they can't be heard or recorded. And what they talk about is that Janine and Warren, her baby, has actually not lived and not done well. And they see Janine and bicker or talk smack about her a little bit. They say she looks terrible and she's pale-faced and yucky. Failed again as a handmaid. And then our narrator, Offred, recounts a story of Janine in the Leon Red Center where she was failing there as well. So this character has got a real up and down arc in the story, and she's now back down with the lowest point where we're told she was having flashbacks to the time before Gilead when she was a waitress, and then Moira literally had to slap her out of it, tell her to wake up and get with the game, otherwise she'd be in big trouble. Let's get into a close reading of a few specific quotes and extracts from chapter 30. The chapter begins with our narrator, Offred, walking to the big spectacle, the Pravaganza. It's late afternoon, the sky hazy, the sunlight diffuse but heavy, and everywhere like bronze dust. I glide with Offglen along the sidewalk, the pair of us, and in front of us, another pair, and across the street, another. So we're getting this image, right? The handmaids stacking up, and this idea that they're not individuals, but they're collective. They're this mass, right? They're an industrialized, objectified being, just like a commercial or industrial farm full of hens or, sows or animals being mated. That's what they are. We must look good from a distance, picturesque, like Dutch milkmaids on a wallpaper frieze, like a shelf full of period costume ceramic salt and pepper shakers, like a flotilla of swans, or anything that repeats itself with at least minimum grace and without variation. So again, the point here, uniformity, clarity, precision. Atwood also references these Dutch milkmaids, which were her inspiration for the costume. So you can see, I'll post the picture here. Soothing to the eye, the eyes, capital E eyes. For that's who this show is for. We're off to the Pravaganza to demonstrate how obedient and pious we are. In other words, they're being watched, right? As always, there's a 100% consciousness of the fact that the eyes are on them, that the big brother, that the Gilead, that the commanders, they're looking, they're watching, they know what you're up to. Once they arrive at the Pravaganza, they have this sort of private or intimate moment beneath the din and hum of the masses screaming and yelling around them. Head for the back, Offglen murmurs at my side. We can talk better. And when we're kneeling, heads bowed slightly, I can hear from all around us a susurration, like the rustling of insects and tall, dry grass. So this susurrus S sound is an animal sound, right? And there's this reference again to this idea that they're a part of a collective animal biological mass, right? They're no longer the individual, I think, therefore I am Westerner. That's all been subjugated to the greater good, to the body of the people. This is one of the places where we can exchange news more freely, pass it from one to the next. It's almost like a broken telephone, right? The oral tradition of that's how you keep and hear news being passed on through the grapevine. It's hard for them to single out any one of us or hear what's being said, and they wouldn't want to interrupt the ceremony, not in front of the television cameras. So again, there's this reminder that this is an event, right? It's a created spectacle. Picture like the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games, right? All the pomp and the marching, the rallies that the Nazis and Goebbels and Hitler used to have, or even when you think of a massive group of people gathering on Sunday for a televangelical preacher, right? And you see those big, huge churches in Los Angeles or Houston where you have 30, 40,000 people, the size of an entire basketball arena or a football stadium, are full and they're listening to the preacher speak, right? You can picture them walking up to the stage and having their I come to God moment. And then at the end of the chapter, as so often, there's this really dark, bleak moment, right? It's almost like Atwood perpetually needs to remind us at the end of each chapter how bleak and dark and unfaltering the imprisonment of her narrator, Offred, is. So in this case, it's Janine being lectured or told by Moira how to fall in line or behave. Which is kind of ironic because we know Moira herself runs away and doesn't fall in line or behave. But she sees the weakness of Janine and she tells Offred how to take care of her. "I won't send you to the infirmary, so don't even think about it," Moira said. "They won't mess around with trying to cure you. They won't even bother to ship you to the colonies. You go too far away and they just take you up to the chemistry lab and shoot you. Then they burn you up with the garbage, like an unwoman. So forget it." And this hard talk, right? This straight shooting, no nonsense, to the point, honesty, really what we always hear and have come to expect from Moira. Her character is the one that has no veil, right? She can see clearly. She understands before the other women do, before the other handmaids do, what's coming and what Gilead is really about. Like a seer or a kind of Cassandra character from the myths. She's out here telling anyone who will listen, this is what's happening, right? They're killing us, they're murdering us. Something is going on. She's out in the streets yelling, right? Shaking her bell, saying, if you want to listen, this is what's happening. But as is so often the case, the truth sayer, the truth speaker is misinterpreted, or the rest of us who are too weak to believe and to see the reality turn away from her. "I want to go home," Janine said. She began to cry. "Jesus God," Moira said, "that's enough. She'll be here in 1 minute, I promise you. So put your goddamn clothes on and shut up." Janine kept whimpering, but she also stood up and started to dress. Then Moira looks at Offred. "She does that again and I'm not here," Moira said to me. "You just have to slap her like that. You can't let her go slipping over the edge. That stuff is catching." And then there's this moment of reflection from Offred about Moira, where she realizes she must have already been planning then how she was going to get out. So this moment where Moira's the true individual, the outsider, the rebel. She's a lone wolf, right? Even though she knew she was going to escape from the Liam Red Center, she wasn't going to bring her friend Offred with her. That's too dangerous. And Offred, after all, isn't clear-cut enough or strong enough in her principles. So Offred realizes her friend Moira was leaving her behind. Now let's get into some vocabulary from the chapter, as well as sort of context and definitions of those words. Insolent. So showing a rude and arrogant lack of respect. It also comes from the late Middle English word for extravagance. So there's a direct tie-in here from Atwood to the idea of a pravaganza or extravaganza. And it means immoderate or unaccustomed, arrogant. And so we see that in the actions of some of the characters, possibly in Moira, right? Her own insolence. She doesn't put up with the system. She's arrogant and immoderate. She refuses to be contained within the uniformity and the box of Gilead. Chaste. So this is to abstain from extramarital or all sexual activity and intercourse. Also just to not have a sexual nature or intention without unnecessary ornamentation. Simple, restrained. Outfits are chaste. Their behavior is expected to be chaste, ironically somewhat, because their only purpose is to make babies and to reproduce. Yet they're supposed to have this false sense of chastity. Susurrate, or to susurrate. Susurration is how it's used in the chapter. Of leaves, wind, etc. To make a whispering or rustling sound. So it's that almost like a snake tongue sound. It comes from murmuring or whispering, susurrus in Latin. Squeamish, easily made to feel sick or disgusted, having fastidious, really tight moral views, scrupulous. And this is, I think, referring to Aunt Lydia and sort of the aunts at the Red Center who were educating the handmaids. They were fastidious with their moral views, right? They were upholding these new Gilead rules scrupulously, virulently. And then the flip side is that Janine was squeamish in that she was made to feel sick or disgusted by her own actions. First when she was becoming a handmaid, and then later after she failed at having a second baby or the baby died. Thanks so much for watching. That was chapter 33 of The Handmaid's Tale. If you liked the video, if you have any questions, please leave them below in the comments section and I will get back to you right away. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.